Hey everyone, welcome back. I've got a really exciting video for you today. I'm so happy to have Suzi Leach here with me. This is such a long time coming. So many of you have asked to have her on the channel. So yay, finally she's here. For those of you that aren't aware, she's had a really long journey. She had 18 years of chronic illness living with ME CFS, many of which were spent bedbound, but she did eventually fully recover and since has been working with people to help support them and help others around the world to also recover. So she has so many insights, not just from her own journey, but from her work with other people. So really great stuff that we're going to get into today. So Suzi, thank you so much for joining us all the way over in Manchester in England. It's wonderful to have you here.
Thank you. Yeah, it's wonderful to be here and to be sharing and hopefully inspiring everybody to know that it is possible to recover no matter how long or how severe you've been.
We were talking about this a bit just before we hit record, that it's so great how things are changing, because it used to be, because when I started this channel, I'm like, I'm going to share recovery stories. There's probably 5 out there, so I'm going to burn through them pretty quickly. But now we know that that's not the case and that so many people are recovering and there's so many reasons to be hopeful.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels like there's a real community growing around it, and yeah, people are finding lots of different ways and sharing it with others. And yeah, it just builds that hope and builds that possibility, which is so, that belief, which is so important for recovery.
Yeah, thank goodness for the internet. I know it's got its downsides, but it's so amazing how we're all working together and helping each other out. And there's just so much more information available for people. So you've had really what sounds like a hellish journey with this. So what happened with you?
Okay, so it's kind of a windy journey. Obviously many years. I first got ill when I was 17. Just turned 17, and I got glandular fever. Kind of looking back now, I can see that there were symptoms probably starting around 14 when I had headaches every day for about a year and a half. But yeah, I got glandular fever and never recovered. So it was actually my dad who diagnosed me. He's a GP, retired now, but he was a GP. And yeah, 6 months of these symptoms of glandular fever, and I just didn't get any better. And if anything, actually got worse. And yeah, that's it. He diagnosed me and I had absolutely no idea what it was. I'd never heard of it. And that was kind of me for the next year that I was fully bedbound. And then the next year I spent time recovering, and I went back to do my A-levels at school, but I was going in like only for certain lessons and stuff like that, doing a lot of it at home. And then I kind of was okay and you know, was able to go to uni, and there was still some things that weren't there. And I think I was suffering from things like social anxiety and depression from the experience that I'd had of being ill and, you know, just completely all of a sudden being taken from my life as a 17-year-old. And yeah, but, you know, I was able to go to uni and kind of live a relatively normal life. And then from the age of 23, I then relapsed quite badly and was then for that next 12, 13 years in just a spiral of kind of recovering to a certain point, able to work, but still with certain symptoms and things. And then I would just go right back down again, and right back down was completely bedbound every time. And the last most severe relapse I had, which has kind of, I almost see it like my illness in 2 parts. There's like all the illness I experienced before that very severe relapse, and then the illness I experienced in that very severe period. And in terms of like my symptoms and how I experienced it, but then also like the transformation that happened within me over that time. So yeah, from 2017, I think it was, I was bedbound for nearly 3 years. I could only walk to the toilet. I wasn't able to shower out of bed for 6 months. My mum I had like one of those inflatable, it's like a sink, an inflatable sink that you kind of lie back and put your head in. And my mum would wash my hair for me. Yeah, so I was severe. And yeah, I found that the things that helped me recover, and after a lot of research and a lot of digging and all the rest of it that we all very much know about, and yeah, got to where I am today, which is fully recovered. You know, I've been living in Thailand for the last 6 months, climbing mountains. Like, yeah, it's kind of crazy when I think about it, what's happened. But yeah, here I am.
What an amazing thing to share with people who are currently bedbound now and might be listening to this, because I was fortunately never fully bedbound, so I don't know what that's like. So I can't even imagine what it takes to get through your days and your weeks and your months when you're in that state. So when you were in that very severe phase of this, how did you get through your days? What was going on in your head?
So, I mean, a big thing, fortunately, I had the support of my husband and my mum, who were, really there for me. And that, that was huge. But early on, I found like doing a gratitude journal, which, I know a lot of people don't really like them, or they don't really find them that helpful. But for me, it really just enabled me to focus on the small little things, like however small they were, things like my mum coming and doing my hair for me. I had someone that loves me that much who's able to do that for me, and just focusing on those things rather than all the things that weren't happening and all the terrible things I could have thought about. It was hard, I'm not going to lie, but things like meditation just really, really helped me. At one point, I was meditating about 4 or 5 hours a day, because I was so strictly pacing, and my rest periods would be pretty much meditate, headphones on. So a lot of that, reading books really helped, listening to podcasts. I found Tara Brach and her work, and she is still a huge sort of mentor, if you like, of mine. And I would listen to her podcast and do her meditations. And at the very start of that relapse, I about 4 months into it, I was about to turn 30, and I just got this thing of, I can't treat myself like this anymore. I can't keep putting this pressure on myself. I can't be acting like I am. And I don't really know where that came from. It was obviously just something in me that I was like, I don't want to go into another decade like this. And that's where I started doing the gratitude journaling. And I guess I kind of started to work on things like self-compassion and self-forgiveness, and I just filled my life with learning about all that kind of stuff to help me through. And I kept in mind the things that I was getting well for, the motivation behind why I wanted to recover. My niece and nephew were really young. My nephew was born whilst I was in that relapse, and I really wanted to be able to play with them and be with them again. So yeah, things like that really just kept me going and kept me knowing that I had to find a way out of it. And I think as well for me, because I had found that in those levels of improvement before, I knew that, if I'd done it before, why couldn't I do it again? So yeah, all of those things kind of together just, really helped me. And just really focusing on the present moment. And, again, people get a bit sick of hearing about mindfulness, but it really, really saved me, to be honest. So yeah.
It reminds me that I appreciate all of that. Thank you. And it's definitely something, because I always ask this question because it sounds like such a living hell to be stuck in that bedbound state. Mm-hmm. So I just think, how do people get through that? And it's usually something similar to what you said. Like I interviewed Mickel a while back. He was very severe. I'll link it up if people haven't seen it. You can click it. It'll open in a new tab for later. But he said I needed to make my head a better place to be. And that really stuck with me because I think that applies in sickness and in health. And many of us don't realize actually what a terrible place our head is to be because of whatever is going on in our life. And then figuring out what it is that is contributing to it being a terrible place to be, the illness, of course, but what other pressures are you putting on yourself and all these different things. And then finding those ways to make it better. Like you said, the gratitude and whatever it is, journaling, meditation, and all of that stuff. So I really still even focus on that now in my life, just every day, every week, like, is my head a good place to be? So I just think that's really, really valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally relate. I still do that work. I will always be doing that work. That's something that I've learned from this is, these things that we do to recover aren't just like you take that pill, you recover, and that's the end of it. It's a change in your lifestyle. It's a change in the way that you relate to yourself. It's a change in how you relate to the world and and your place in it. And, these are all the things that contribute to us getting sick in the first place. So we can't just drop them and never do them again. And yeah, maybe we don't need to do them as much or whatever, but I still journal all the time. I still meditate. I still do yoga nidra. I still do yoga. I still, do qigong. Like all the things that help me in my recovery are now just a part of my life. And I don't really see that changing because now I actually enjoy doing them.
Yeah, you do get there. It took me a long time to get to the point where I enjoy meditating. But now I actually look forward to it. Like if I miss my meditation session, I'm like, no, that was one of the highlights of my day. Yeah. So really important, obviously, we need to get into what helped you to get fully past such a severe state of illness. But just as interesting or just as helpful, I think, is knowing what things you tried that didn't work for you. So I imagine over that long journey, there's been some stuff. So what was some of that?
So, well, for me, pacing was like the biggest information that I was given at the beginning of the illness. And that is kind of at the start how I recovered, just over time, I guess gently regulating my nervous system without really realizing it and getting to a place where I felt okay again. As the relapses went on, that started to work less and less. And one reason I think for that is because I became so strict with it, so much fear around it. I kept a diary that I used to track, when I would still be finding myself that I was pacing and it wasn't working, and I would still crash. I was like, right, well, I need to write more down. I need to write, I would bend down and pick a laptop up, so I would write that down. Like there was one point when I was able to be downstairs in one of the relapses, and I would start writing down how many times I'd been to the toilet, and therefore be a bit like, oh God, should I go to the toilet? And there was just so much fear around it. I would grade how much activity I'd done, all that stuff. And so that's why I think it didn't work by the end, because because of the fear, the fear and the pressure and all of that stuff. So I tried all the supplements. I at one point in my last relapse saw 3 different nutritionists and naturopaths. So I tried all homeopathic stuff. I did finger prick tests. Obviously, I couldn't go in to have any tests, so my naturopath would work with me and send me at-home tests to do, which would check my vitamin D levels and iron and hormone levels and all that stuff. And so when I first started my journey with supplements, I think I read it in a book. I can't remember which book it was, but I was like, okay, this is what I'll take. No advice from anybody, which is probably not advisable. And then by the end, I had this very tailored supplements for me and what these tests were showing. And I was doing homeopathic stuff. I was doing lots of kind of holistic natural remedies to help with hormone levels and things like that. And none of it worked. I didn't see any change. I spent loads of money, and then it didn't work. I didn't see any different. And diet was another thing. I got really obsessed with gut health at one point and was convinced that was the answer. And, I was taking all of these probiotics and growing my own kefir, which this water for kefir had these grains that, oh God, it was, I did all of that stuff. Tried lots of different diets. I tried keto diet, the Terry Walls's MS diet, paleo, very organic, very clean, no sugar, gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, all of the ones, celery juice, and none of them really had an impact for me. I will say on that though that I already had a very healthy diet, really. I've always eaten pretty well, always eaten, cooked meal from scratch and eaten a pretty balanced diet, not very many processed foods, things like that. So I do think it's an important part of recovery. I do think for anybody, for someone to be a healthy person, no matter who you are or what illness you have, or even if you have an illness, a healthy diet is important because it's the fuel in our body. So for me, I think that's probably why I didn't see as much of an impact there, because there wasn't really an issue with my diet that much. So yeah, after that journey with those 3 nutritionists and that, that whole period of it's all kind of a blur now, but maybe even maybe even 2 years, maybe a bit less than 2 years, was really focused on that being the answer. And I didn't see any change at all, which is when I found brain training. And I can't even remember how that came about. I think probably just a lot of research. At the time, there wasn't as many programs, there wasn't as many people talking about it. I didn't really know anybody else that was doing a brain training program. But, at that point, you're kind of willing to try anything. So it just, something about it seemed to make sense to me. And because I had so much fear, every time I fell into a relapse, in an instant, I would be struck with, oh my God, how long is this going to last? In 12 years, the longest I was well for was 18 months. And every relapse had lasted a year or more. So every time I went into a relapse, it was, oh my God, I can't believe this is it again. This has happened again. When every time I thought I'd found the answer, I thought I'd learned what I needed to do or learned how I needed to live. And then when this severe relapse hit, it was just the fear involved was massive. So for me, understanding the nervous system and the role that fear and stress and all of that plays, it just made sense. And every single relapse for me had been linked to stress and a stressful period, things that were going on. So yeah, I found ANS Rewire, and that's the brain training program that I started doing, which I found, I kind of did it very slowly. I was obviously bedbound, so I couldn't watch the videos every day. And then there was Christmas was involved, so there was a bit of a time where I kind of put a pause on it, which is a good thing I like about it, that you can do it at your own pace. It took me a little while to see any differences with it, because at the beginning I was putting a lot of perfectionism onto it and am I doing this right and all of that stuff. So I did kind of find that I was crashing a little bit at first, but I persevered through, and kind of within 3 weeks of really, really putting the technique properly into practice, my light sensitivity went. And, I'd been so bad at times that I would have to have the curtains shut and sunglasses on because they were so sensitive. And I could stop using my eye mask, and I used it when I was resting, and I stopped that as well. So yeah, that, I think with brain training, it's really important to kind of to see those small changes and really celebrate them when they happen, because it's giving evidence to your brain, it's giving you faith to carry on. And yeah, that's kind of, I rolled with that, and it got me to the place of being able to go out in a wheelchair once a week, or sometimes more. It was only once a week because my husband was at work, and I would still need him to carry me downstairs, into the wheelchair. But yeah, there was a weekend where I went out 3 days in a row, all of a sudden, never been outside before, and I was in the car going to this place that I'd been visualizing for a year of trying to get to. And I remember being sat in the car, and the force of that movement, fast movement, I obviously hadn't felt that in such a long time. I was like, oh my God, slow down. And it was I'm going 20 miles an hour. This is not fast. And then, just things going outside and feeling the expanse of the sky above my head, and the smells were so strong, because I just hadn't really experienced that other than through an open window. So yeah, it was amazing. Just amazing, that sense of gratitude and awe, and just sheer gratitude. That's all it is, that I was getting to experience that again. And I think all of that, and really savoring those things and really taking note of those things that they were happening, really added to my brain what was going on, and that it was safe, and that it was okay, and that I could do these things. So yeah, I got to a point of I could do more social things. I could come into this room actually, which is next door to the bedroom, and sit on the sofa and do activity colouring or reading. So my life expanded for sure with the brain training, but I kind of got to a point where I think the fear was so strong that I couldn't quite get over that hurdle of doing more. So at that point, I found Mickel therapy, which I knew a couple of people had done before, kind of a lesser well-known, or I've not heard that many people talk about it. But doing that almost just gave me the permission. Like just something flipped in me with that. And within 3 weeks of that, I would walk down the stairs for the first time in 2.5 years. And yeah, very quickly, I was using the brain training techniques the whole time. And through that Mickel therapy, I really discovered my sense of self, my authentic self. I started to understand about emotions and how the effect that they have on the nervous system, and how that symptoms are acting as messages around emotions that are being ignored and suppressed. I learned about my needs and how to set boundaries and how to stand up for myself. And it just really kind of expanded on the work that I'd been doing whilst being bedbound, where I was kind of doing some trauma work and some like digging a lot of the time through journaling. And yeah, it just really helped me with the fear. And once I kind of got over that, I was able to then start going out a lot more, and it just snowballed within, I think, 4 months of starting that. I got rid of my wheelchair. I stopped needing my wheelchair, and it felt like every day something massive was happening to celebrate. You know, I used to write down at the end of every week and celebrate my progress on all of these things, and it would just be, you know, the actual things themselves would get bigger, and it would be able to spend time with friends outside for like 4 hours. And I also had washed my own hair, and I also made a cup of tea, and I also did some washing up, and like, you know, the really small things that we're normal, you know, kind of when you are well, you wish you didn't have to do the washing up. But oh my God, I have got photos on my phone of being like, yay, I've washed up. So, yeah, it was kind of crazy really how quickly that part of it happened once it did.
So the first was ANS Rewire with Neuffer, right? Mm-hmm. That's the program you're referring to.
Yeah.
And then the second one is Mickel therapy. I've actually never heard of this. What is it?
Yeah.
I mean, I know you explained the overall goals of it, but what is it really?
What is it? Yeah, so it was created by Dr. Mickel, and you kind of work with a therapist. So you have an individual therapist where you work one-on-one with them, and they explain the premise of understanding the symptoms as chemical messages from the brain, which are linked to your emotions. I always feel like it's a bit of a mystery when you're explaining it, but it's very much based around your nervous system and regulating that. And understanding emotions as your primary emotions and then your secondary emotions, which are very much based around thoughts. So it's like the negative thoughts, whether they're the emotions that they're eliciting. Is that a true emotion, or is that an emotion that's coming from a thought? And so again, it's that kind of mindset belief work as well. So there's the 3 keys that you kind of work off when you're working with your therapist. You're very much going like through your day and where you're finding symptoms and what's happening around that, and trying to understand what the emotions that are there and what's going on. So it's good in the sense that you get to really talk about your experience. And yeah, the 3 keys that you work with are around, what are my needs? Am I being treated unfairly? And is this fair? So obviously the fear thing I've mentioned was a big thing for me. So I could understand that if there was fear there, is it because it's coming from my thoughts, or is it because, and obviously most of the time, it's my thoughts. And another big thing that they talk about in Mickel therapy is around boredom, and that sense of, you know, kind of hopelessness and lack of purpose, lack of meaning that obviously spending your days bedbound, you're going to feel that is contributing to symptoms and your nervous system not feeling safe, not getting your needs met. So it's very much around like finding new things, finding things so that you're not bored. Like if that's what you're feeling, do something new. You know, your brain loves new and novel things. So I did all sorts of things like there's the film Pitch Perfect, and they do the Cup song in it. So I learned the Cup song, like, you know, which was a great thing to do for kind of like coordination and the brain. And you're basically just trying to create those new neural pathways and distract yourself from the focus on symptoms, the focus on the thoughts of what your life is and, you know, how bad it is. And it's creating a new self, a new life. And, you know, I really connected to my true self. That was a huge part of it for me, the self-discovery aspect. Just before, I was very much living a life that I thought, the idea of the person I thought I should be, or what I was expected of me. I felt very disconnected from myself, and I didn't have my own opinions, really. I didn't really know what I liked. It was all very much an idea of what I thought I should be and what I thought the people around me would like me if I liked, and all that kind of stuff. So Mickel therapy really allowed me to reconnect with that and think about, okay, well, yeah, what are the things I enjoy doing? What does bring me joy in my day? What am I recovering for? And yeah, I really explored that through that therapy, and that was a huge part of my recovery. As I was getting more well to do things, I would be dancing, and if you find yourself kind of like focusing on a symptom, or a symptom comes up, it's kind of like, right, do something to get yourself out of it, which, without kind of fully understanding it at the time, was kind of like the somatic work of regulating your nervous system. And, I would shake it out and get up and dance, get up and do something different, distract my brain. So yeah, it's kind of, at its core, nervous system regulation, but through connecting to your authentic self, understanding your needs, understanding your emotions, and learning what the symptoms might be there as a message to tell you.
Something that could be beneficial for virtually everybody. It sounds amazing. Yeah. I'm kind of like, should I take this now? No, it sounds like an excellent program. Thank you for taking the time to walk through it. How incredible.
Yeah, and I know that it isn't often heard of. I think now it's something called the Mind-Body Reconnect, which my therapist was kind of creating at the time that she was doing a lot of work with Gabor Mate and all of his work. So I know that that's the kind of core of where it comes from, and that she's kind of developed Mickel therapy into this Mind-Body Reconnect program. So I think that's where you can kind of find the work in its most updated form today.
Okay, so I know you've shared a lot here, but if you were to summarize in your experience and with the people that you support now, what would you say are the key aspects of recovery?
So I've mentioned a few of them already in terms of understanding the nervous system and the states of the nervous system, connecting to your authentic self. One of the things is belief in recovery is so important. How can we expect to see results from something if we don't believe it's possible? How can we see the opportunities that are there for us for healing if we don't believe they exist? I think it's so important to watch recovery interviews like this to give you that belief and to find it within you, because if that's what you're striving for, then you need to believe it's possible. So finding whatever you can to keep that belief and know that it's possible for you, because if it's possible for others, it's possible for you as well. There's nothing special about me. I didn't recover because, it was chosen to be that way or anything like that. It's possible for us, but I think belief is really important, as is giving yourself enough time. We're so desperate to recover, understandably. We want to end the suffering. We want to end, the life that we're leading and how it's shaping, but rushing this work and because it is such a transformation really that happens in healing, it can't be rushed. So allow yourself the time. The pressure that we put on ourselves to heal, that pressure is only going to send a danger signal to your nervous system. So in essence, it's kind of counterintuitive as well. So I think allowing yourself the space and time to really integrate what you're learning and the healing work that you're doing, allowing it to land in your body properly and allowing your nervous system to feel safe in that rather than rushed and pressured to meet a deadline is really important as well. And then developing and cultivating a compassionate relationship with yourself is so important. I mentioned that at the beginning of that severe relapse, I couldn't live as I was with the relationship with myself anymore. And yeah, that was a huge part of my journey in developing and realizing that I needed to be more self-compassionate. And, for so many reasons, the safety that creates in your nervous system when you have that gentle, soothing parenting approach to yourself rather than being harsh and critical. You you really need to kind of find that honoring of yourself. We're spending so much time with ourselves, especially if you are bedbound. And often we can kind of be our own worst enemy, our own worst critic. And imagine if you had someone that was kind of stood there being like that at you, like, at somebody else. Imagine the impact that would have on you and have on your day and have on your healing and have on your mindset. That if that's going on in your head, it's the same as an external person. So I think finding that so that you can allow yourself to begin having patience for yourself, having love for yourself, having self-acceptance, self-forgiveness, and allowing yourself to know that you aren't broken and that you don't need to be fixed, and that you are good enough, and all of those kind of core wounds that sit underneath a lot of this illness, in my experience anyway. That self-compassion is really the cornerstone of all of that. And a lot of the time, I've done a lot of inner child work as part of my recovery, and we can't relate to that part of us or allow that part of us to feel safe to speak and feel safe for its voice to be heard if we're shouting it down and telling ourselves we're not good enough and, being, I should have done that better, or why aren't I recovering? Why aren't I doing what other people are doing? All of that stuff that, it's so easy to do is, in a way, it's harming us. So yeah, finding ways to bring that self-compassion to you, that softness, that gentleness is really healing, and I think a really important part of recovery.
You talked about hope as well. And I was thinking when you were sharing your story and just brought back memories of the relapses, and that it can just be so soul crushing and exhausting, not just the physical aspects, but just the mental of like, I don't know how many times I can keep picking myself back up. I don't know how many times I can keep finding the mental endurance to go through these really hard days. And you can get really hopeless. So, how do you keep hope going during that?
So I think for me, I've mentioned that motivation, that why are you getting better? What is it you're getting better for? Like beyond just getting rid of symptoms, beyond feeling better. What is the life that you want to be living? What is the reasons that you want to be out in the world again? Who are you doing it for? My niece and nephew were really important in my recovery. Who are you getting better for? Who do you want to be spending your time with? I'm really visualizing that and allowing yourself to feel that and use that as motivation to keep hope and to keep going. And, at my lowest ebb, some real dark moments, there was still something in me, still, at the very core of me, still a burning light that just said you can still keep going. And that is within all of us. And I think finding that, kind of learning that and seeing, what brings that to you. What have you learned from your lowest ebbs? How can you take that and bring that into your motivation to keep going? Can be really powerful, just like really finding that within you and just holding on to it. And some days it's not there. Some days you think it's gone and it's never going to return, but hang on to those days, focus on those days where it does happen, take photos on those days where you feel good, where you can smile, where there's something to feel joy about, something however small it is, so that you've got those things to look back on, that evidence to show yourself that there is still good days and that there is still hope, and that's coming from within you as well. People ask me, how did you do that? How did you get through it? And I think when we're asked to, we can endure way, way much more than we think. And, even if we think that we've hit a rock bottom and that happens, we find ourselves at somewhere lower, you can still keep going. It's possible.
I think that's such a good insight and such an important thing to hold on to, no matter what you're going through in life that's trying, because, it might be, circumstances in your life, or, working 2 jobs or going back to school, or things that are overwhelming and hard and challenging. And just, I love everything you just said about keeping that, your why and your future focus and capturing those good moments, and, shining a spotlight on them. So yeah, I think that's absolutely incredible. So you're doing work now with people to help them also to recover. So can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so I'm trained as a coach, as a wellbeing resilience coach. And my aim is to be helping people along all stages in the journey of recovery, of healing, whether you're kind of doing programs and finding blocks and you need a little bit of help with that, with limiting beliefs, with things like perfectionism that might be coming up for you, or if you're further down the line and kind of getting out into the world again, because, it's every stage of the healing journey where we find new layers to heal and new stumbling blocks that we come across. And I've been through them all, and I kind of understand that, the identity shifts that go from being somebody who's chronically ill to being someone who's well and kind of trying to be out in the world again. So when I was recovering, I felt very alone. I didn't have loads of support in the specific techniques and things like that I was doing. And I just don't want people to feel that, I want people to feel supported. And, if things like you struggle with self-compassion, I can be a guide to help you find that within yourself, find that connection to your authentic self. That's such a huge piece of the puzzle for me, was developing that and reconnecting with that. And that's a big passion of mine, and finding that self-love again. So yeah, my aim is just to help people. I share on my Instagram, on my blog, and I just want people to know that you can recover from this illness, and yeah, it's possible.
Absolutely amazing. And of course, people watching everything that Suzi shared, everything you need to get in touch with her and follow her and learn more will all be in the video description. So I really encourage you to expand that description and check it out, and go check out the work that she's doing. Because Suzi, I really think that every sentence that you just shared in this interview was pure gold. I think your insight and your experience and your knowledge is so valuable, and I just think this is going to help so many people. So thank you so much for doing this today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you, Raelan, for putting this out there. It's really, really important for Hope as well to watch these recovery interviews and see other people doing it, know that it's possible for you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and for those of you watching, I'm just thinking, I've interviewed Neuffer from ANS Rewire quite a few times, so I'm going to link my favorite interview from him here up on the screen in a second, where he just shares a lot of what he does in his program and just some really, really helpful insights. But yeah, thank you again, Suzi. Thank you to all of you watching. Big hugs to you, whatever you're going through. Keep at it. If Suzi could get through what she got through, I believe you can get through what you did, what you're going through as well. Just do whatever you have to do to keep that hope going. Good for you for watching videos like this. I hope you got something out of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. And as always, I hope to see you in the next one.